Every vineyard once started out as an open field of possibilities. Once you've spent the time evaluating the site and simply standing there, staring at it, imagining what it could be someday, it's finally time to start preparing it for planting your new grapevines. Some fields were previously pastures or open land and are now being planted into crops for the first time in a long time. Other fields have been in crop production the previous year and have bare tilled soil. It's not necessarily required to till up the whole field before planting a vineyard. Often, it's enough to just till where each row will be. There are a few different steps to preparing a field and planting the vines. First, mark out the rows. Decide what shape and size the vineyard is going to be, how far away the rows are going to be from each other, and make sure they're all in straight lines. Second, till the rows thoroughly so that the soil is nice and loose and ready for your vines. Third, if you need to apply any fertilizer or change the pH of the soil based on your soil test, this is a great time to do it. 4, dig the holes and plant the vines. And 5, water them in thoroughly unless a big rain is expected in the next couple of days. The first step is to make a map of the vineyard. It's helpful to mark on the map where the rows are going to be. If you haven't yet decided how wide your rows will be spaced, this is one of the last opportunities you have to do that. Lay out the margins of the vineyard first so that they are straight and parallel to some landmark like a road. In this case, the southern edge of the vineyard will be parallel to the road and placed far enough away from the tree lines so that the trees are not shading out the grapevines. There should also be at least 30 feet between the vineyard and the nearest tree line, ditch, or road so that you can turn around your tractor when driving from row to row. After mapping it out, you will need to get in the field and actually mark out the field borders and rows. Let's watch.
Hi, today we are establishing a brand new vineyard right here behind me. A little bit of prep work went into that. First of all, we had to figure out where we were going to lay these rows exactly. So we wanted to stay a little bit of room away from the fence here so we could have room to drive here. But when we figured out to choose a point, we chose about 17 feet from there. And we did also on the other end of this row, we measured 17 feet off of the fence. And then we did a triangulation to get our straight line across here. And then every row, we laid out 8 rows. They're 9 feet apart. From post to post, they're 24 feet apart. So in this particular case, it's not quite a commercial vineyard. We're fitting 8 vines from post to post, but typically you would probably fit 3 or 4 vines in that kind of a span. And let's see, what else? To get this all prepped, we had to lay out the flags, and then we pulled string lines to get a really straight line. Of course, double checking and measuring a few times to make sure that we were still straight on. But once we got that laid out, we did lay a few flags a couple of times further down in the vineyard just to confirm. And after that, I guess we pulled those strings and we were able to mark out the post spacing with the tape measure and pinpoint exactly where each post was going to go in the field even before the trellis is up at this point. So at this point, the vines are getting dug in the ground. We had to do a little prep work as far as tilling. As you can see, the soil, these first 3 rows are already prepped and 2 rows are planted. The 3rd row is ready for vines to get planted into. But the 4th row is not ready yet at all. We have to till that. So maybe we can just jump over and see how that works.
The next step is to till the rows. The soil should be tilled thoroughly to break up any large chunks of soil and to make it easy for the vines to be planted into. In this vineyard, John is using a walk-behind tractor or rototiller to till the rows because it's a small vineyard. Larger vineyards require larger equipment to get it done efficiently. You can simply use a 1 or 2 bottom plow behind a tractor to till the rows for larger vineyards. Whatever equipment you use, you may need to go over the areas 2 to 3 times in order to break up the soil loosely and to a depth of 12 inches. Some growers will till up the entire field before planting to kill deep-rooted perennial grasses. But this is usually unnecessary and leads to problems such as erosion. It also means that you would have to plant grass seed between the rows after planting, which can be hard to establish, especially if it's a dry year. The year before planting a vineyard, take a soil test to find out if you need to amend the soil pH and add fertilizer to make the field optimal for grapevines. Remember that the soil pH should be between 6.5 to 7.5, so if it is outside of the range, you may need to add sulfur or lime prior to planting. The soil test results will provide recommendations on whether you need to add important nutrients like nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium, magnesium, or boron. The tillage you do before planting is a good time to add any needed fertilizer. After initially tilling the soil, broadcast the recommended rates of fertilizer and till again to incorporate it into the top 12 inches of the soil. You can also till in compost or manure at this time. More information on nutrient management for vineyards is included later in this course. Once the soil is ready, step 4 is to plant the vines. It's best to dig each hole right before the vine is planted so that the soil in the hole doesn't have a chance to dry out. Digging these holes should be easy to do by hand after the soil has been nicely tilled. A shovel is all you need to do this by hand, but some growers also use an auger. Very large vineyards can have their vineyards custom planted using specialized tree planters. To make sure each vine is evenly spaced in the row, you can use a long tape measure and spray paint to mark the place for each vine. The hole should be slightly deeper than you intend to plant the vines. Place the vine into the hole and pile the soil loosely around the roots. The base of the cane should be just above the soil surface when the hole is filled. Lightly press on the soil to hold it in place and reduce the chance of large air bubbles around the roots. Some bare root vines come with very long root systems. You only need a small amount of these roots to establish a healthy new vine. If you keep those long roots, they can tangle and girdle each other, cutting off water flow to the vines. Therefore, it's a good idea to cut off excess root growth if the root ball is very thick, leaving just 5 to 12 inches of roots behind. While the vines wait to be planted, they can sit in a bucket of water for 30 minutes or up to 4 hours to keep the roots hydrated. After planting the grapevines, water them thoroughly. This settles the soil around the vines and makes sure the roots have enough moisture to begin growing and establishing. If a heavy rain is expected in the next 2 days after planting and the soil is already moist, this step may be skipped. Here are some additional recommendations for planting a vineyard. First, plant immediately after digging the holes. Letting the soil clump and dry out will result in air pockets and poor root establishment. Auger dug holes should be partially backfilled before inserting the vine, using a 12 to 16 inch wide auger. Base the depth on the length of the roots. Third, have a water source available to thoroughly water each plant soon after planting. Fourth, apply poles, either bamboo or rebar, after planting at the base of each vine so that the vines have something to climb up as soon as they start growing. Fifth, use grow tubes after planting to facilitate safe herbicide application and effective weed control.